Innovating Education Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.
Teaching history holds many challenges for educators, especially among divided communities or those with a troubled past. They must be careful to have a neutral perspective and present the facts in a balanced way. But learning history can also help to build bridges and foster reconciliation. In Wroclaw, in Poland, the education initiative Wroclaw aims to give students a better understanding of events. Let's find out more about their work.
There are reminders of Dietrich Bonhoeffer everywhere in the city. He was a German theologian who opposed the Nazi movement and was executed in 1945 in a concentration camp.
Not so many citizens of Wrocław know about him. He's not a popular person, I would say. He's not a popular character of the city. He doesn't exist on the historical lessons in schools, for sure.
Bonhoeffer is usually taken as an example for the kids when you are teaching the chapter of resistance against the National Socialist regime, and when you're talking about resistance within the church, then Bonhoeffer is usually a popular example.
The words round the base of this statue read, "We forgive you and ask your forgiveness," and date from the 60s, when Germany and Poland were working towards reconciliation.
There's the Association of Ex-Police in Germany with Erika Steinbach as their head, and they usually give quite provocative remarks in the media which are received by Polish people on a very sensitive level. And on the other hand side, Polish people, as far as I understand, are a bit afraid of German people coming back and claiming back territory and houses and whatever else. So this is a very sensitive spot. So how can you overcome that in your history lessons?
Wrocław hopes to answer that question. Each year, history researchers and teachers from across Europe gather and discuss ways of approaching Europe's turbulent history.
Textbooks are the main source material for history students. But these are normally one person's interpretation of the facts. Other historians might have another point of view. That presents a big challenge in countries divided along sectarian lines like Lebanon, where there is no commonly accepted history textbook.
The Lebanese still haven't managed to agree a common narrative of what happened during the civil war at the end of last century. Lebanese schools all teach different versions of the war, and students don't trust the school books, instead turning to their families for information.
If there's missing information, or if there's information that other students are taught differently, we ask our parents for clarification.
Since the Ministry of Education hasn't published a history textbook for schools, they use books written for the most part by historians with sectarian and/or political agendas. Ancient history is easier to teach, but modern history is something of a minefield. Although the main facts are not contentious, the interpretation of them remains completely disputed.
I tackle the general lines, but without going into details. I have to be a bit vague in my teaching because each group has its own sensitivities. There are sectarian sensitivities which political leaders try to exploit, and this forms a barrier between teachers and students.
The Ministry of Education has tried several times to agree a common history book, but Lebanese politicians and community leaders can't reach consensus.
We suggested presenting history lessons in the form of dossiers from which the students could do their own research. We divide students into groups and they discuss the ideas among themselves, write them down and try to convince other groups to agree with their conclusions.
Without an agreed common history of the Lebanese civil war, in some way the war goes on. A common history is vital for closure, for reconciliation, for constructing a lasting peace.
Reading words on a page is one way of learning history, but it can't convey the full horror of events like the genocide in Rwanda. At the Kigali Memorial Center, Rwandans can revisit and try to comprehend their country's darkest hour. It holds vital lessons for survivors and future generations. More in this report.
In just 4 months during 1994, 800,000 people died in the Rwandan genocide, which was organised by extremist Hutus who wanted to eradicate the Tutsi, a minority population in Rwanda. Today, education is part of the reconciliation process. It's important to inform Rwandans about the genocide and the importance of never letting such horrific events occur again. Taking school groups to visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial, sited near the mass graves of 250,000 people who died in the genocide, is part of this education.
Survivors of genocide against Tutsi, and I want to help the Rwandan young generation, to training them, to show them how they must be united, how they must fight genocide ideology.
It's a particularly difficult subject to teach because of the intrinsically ethnic nature of the killings. The centre's approach is to remain truthful and accurate without accusing or blaming any section of the population today.
Students come from diverse backgrounds. Some of them have memory of the genocide. Some of them have parents who are in prison for their activities. Some of them are orphan survivors. Some of them are born after the genocide. And the real difficulty and the real challenge is to make an environment in which all of those students, regardless of their past, regardless of their personal history, feel welcome and included.
One of the centre's main purposes is to educate young people about the dangers of prejudice.
This program is very important for Rwandans, especially students from secondary school. These students are future for this country and they will be leaders of this country. So this education helps them to understand the future, for them to plan for the future.
17 years after the genocide, Rwanda now has a stable democratic government, and many of the perpetrators of the genocide have been brought to justice. By learning from the past, Rwanda can now look forward to the future.
That's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed our program. Don't forget to visit our website.
Learning World in association with WISE, an initiative of Qatar Foundation.